Thanks for joining me on episode 755 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Winston Clements, motivational speaker and limitation breaker. I challenge you to invest yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to recognize your limitations are an illusion and develop resilience is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
The truth is, any of these things could be wasting money or could not be, depending on your particular situation. You have to look at what are your priorities, what are your values, what's important to you, what are you doing, what's your situation. And then you have to make an actual intentional plan and follow it.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about impacting the world through stewarding your treasures, I talk with you about 20 ways you likely are wasting money. I also talk about what you can do to stop wasting that money. And I also share how you can figure out if this is really wasting money for you or not.
As we talk about stewarding your treasures, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without costing yourself an extra dime? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show. If you enjoy the show when you're ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon.
Let's talk about, quote, wasting money. And at the end of this, I'm going to talk a little bit about why a lot of times that phrase or that thought is one that can be really misused. But let's dive in and talk about some of the things that happen. So I've been a financial coach now since 2011, and I've worked with literally hundreds of clients. And there's certain things that show up time and time again when I'm working with people on their finances. If I'm working with a small business owner, if I'm working with a couple, if I'm working with a single, if I'm working with anyone, time and time after time, I see different kinds of things that show up routinely that most people would consider wasting money. And so I wanted to share some of those things, about 20 ways that you're probably or potentially wasting some money. So the first one is kind of different kinds of fees. This could be overdraft fees. This could be ATM fees. This could be late fees. This could be fees that you're paying directly or indirectly for any sort of service that potentially you could either avoid completely or you could negotiate away. And a lot of times we don't pay much attention to the fees because they're only a couple of dollars here or $10 there or that kind of thing. But over a year and over all of the different ways that you do it, it rapidly adds up. So if you can pay attention to how you're paying things, how you structure things, oftentimes you can avoid all or most of these kinds of fees. The next one, unused or underused subscriptions. You know, if you're paying $180 a month for cable and in reality you're only watching 2 channels, and the truth is that you could get those 2 channels another way that's much cheaper, that would be an underutilized subscription. Or if you're paying for a gym membership and you're never going to the gym, either go to the gym or stop paying for the membership. That would be an unused subscription. And I've had folks audit their tools and their subscriptions that they're paying for and literally save $400 or $500 a year just by paying attention to what they're paying for, what they're using, and what they're not. How about clothing that you're not using? How many of you have a closet that is literally busting at the gills, and yet the truth is you don't wear hardly any of those clothes, or you can't fit into them anymore or anything else? They take up space, they take up energy in your mind, and truth is you could turn around and sell those clothes and get rid of them and probably even make some money on it. Another way we waste money is our thinking about buying things when they're on sale. See, the truth is you step out and you go, I'm going to buy it because it's on sale, not because you need it, not because you're going to use it. And the truth is, if you buy a $700 product for $500, you didn't save $200, you spent $500. You still went down the amount that you had. It's a mindset thing. You need to recognize that you are still spending money and decide whether or not it's worth it. How about going to the grocery store without a plan? If you're not doing some form of meal planning and shopping planning, then you're going to end up with two of these ways of wasting money. One of them is you go to the grocery store without a list or a plan, or you worse, go when you're hungry. And another is the waste that you have, the food that you end up throwing away or getting rid of and not using because you've simply not planned around your meals and what you're doing. Or buying an item out of convenience and paying the convenience fee. This is, if you're going to go buy a glass of water or a bottle of water, you run into the convenience store and you end up paying 30 or 40 or more times what it would cost you at the grocery store to buy an entire 12-pack of those drinks. The truth is we do this all the time just for convenience, but the truth is we pay a fee for that. Here's another one. Not actually exercising, eating right, and doing other things to maintain your health. Obesity, lack of exercise, health problems, all of these things are literally costing Americans thousands of dollars a year. How about not cutting things like cable, or finding ways to lower your electricity cost, or forgetting that the little stuff matters, that the truth is it's the day-to-day spending, $5 here and $10 there, does add up and cost you over the life of your time. Interest fees that you end up paying, whether that's interest fees on debt, like you're paying on your credit card or loans or other things, or interest that you're paying when you do borrow money because you have not maintained things in a way where you get the best offers or the best deals, or you have to finance it in the first place. You can't pay cash because you haven't been able to save up your money to actually purchase what you want. Not consistently shopping and renegotiating services can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Buying new things when a used item would be almost as good or just as good. And here's the biggest one. Going out to eat consistently and all of the time literally cost many Americans thousands of dollars over the course of a year. Most of us spend way too much money on food. And when you pay attention to it, all of a sudden you begin to recognize that that's happening and you change your behavior. See, that's the key to any of these. How do you stop wasting money? And how do you figure out whether or not it's actually wasting money at all? The truth is, any of these things could be wasting money or could not be, depending on your particular situation. You have to look at what are your priorities, what are your values, what's important to you, what are you doing, what's your situation. And then you have to make an actual intentional plan and follow it. And then you have to measure against that and make sure that you are and see what the results are. And then modify that plan and that behavior based on those results. It's a process, not an event, to go through this. It's all well and good to get a list of the top ways that you're wasting money or that you're potentially wasting money. But the real key is that intentionality about figuring out, once you've identified this is what I'm doing, figuring out what you can do about it and then actually doing it. That's what's so valuable. And that's the hard part. It's simple to identify the problem. What's hard is fixing it, because it's simple, but it's certainly not easy. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of treasures, you can sign up for our treasures tips by going to inspiredstewardship.com/treasures or text in the U.S. 44222 treasures tips. And we'll send you 5 weeks of our best tips on stewarding your treasures. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.